Okay, folks, so this is kind of a follow-up video to my previous video about why Howie Hawkins is not a good substitute for Bernie Sanders. And it's also kind of a response to some of the group, or rather the comments that I got to that video, suggesting that, that I got the wrong idea or whatever. And I have been getting some people who are trying to push back on the idea that the Green Party is communist, even with stupid stuff like this. So this conversation is still going on in Progressives for Green. There are people that I am familiar with who are continuing the argument that I was having with some of them. But basically now we have somebody else posting this picture that Howie Hawkins had posted with his campaign logo on it and his campaign website. And a fellow by the name of Victor says, "So the Howie Hawkins campaign posted this. I am sympathetic to many socialist ideas. I don't even dislike communists, but this sort of thing is a great way to be sure your campaign utterly fails in November." And they put a Marx quote here: "From the standpoint of a higher economic form of society, private ownership of the globe by single individuals will appear quite as absurd as private ownership of one man by another. Even a whole society, a nation, or even all simultaneously existing societies taken together are not the owners of the globe. They are only its possessors. They must hand it down to the succeeding generations in an improved condition." Among other things, this is an argument against private property, which is something that the majority of even Bernie supporters that I know would never get behind. So, but aside from all of that, and I've kind of made this point, and so did Victor in his argument, it doesn't matter what you think of Karl Marx. It doesn't matter if you think that people are wrong about Karl Marx. It doesn't matter if you think that people are wrong about communism. It doesn't change the fact that this is absolute lunacy, and just sheer stupidity on the part of a campaign to post something like this. So, now, people have been saying that, maybe I was wrong about my interpretation of it, but posting Karl Marx as a happy birthday, from your campaign there's just no coming back from that. But, so Victor says, "A little tough love. Every American incarnation of the Communist Party has utterly failed in the modern era. The socialist parties are equally not going anywhere, and they are rife with infighting and then splitting again like amoebas. You are worried about a takeover. It's coming from the extreme left, not from the right." So first person here says, "Okay, liberal." And then somebody says, Andrew JS says, "I feel like the OP either didn't read this meme or can't understand what it says." And Brittany says, "I feel like you either didn't read the OP or didn't understand what it said. He made it clear that regardless of what you as communists or socialists might think of Marx, this is not going to get a positive reaction from voters who actually vote." And he is absolutely right. And this Michael Bolt guy said it's time for liquidation of the OP. And then this Cliff Summers guy says, "You honor your capitalist pig warmonger heroes, Victor Vaughn. We will honor ours." And then this guy says, "Nah, this quote is spot on. Howie is a true socialist. Bernie was just a poser." Again, remember, what the whole point of this is that he's not a good, substitute for Bernie Sanders. And apparently they think so too. But what it amounts to is the Howie Hawkins people are basically very interested in trying to get Bernie's voters for Howie. And the fact that they're doing things that are utterly unelectable is just lost on them. So some of these comments are a little less inflammatory than others, but then this guy says, Trey Woodford says, "It has me more behind him than ever," because he posted a picture of Karl Marx. And this Michael Bolt guy says, "Shore your base instead of alienating them for the sake of attracting centrist liberals." Okay, but you don't have a base. you get tiny amounts of the vote, and this guy G.W. Wilson is usually kind of a voice of reason, or tries to be. He says, "I agree. We're not going to be able to unteach boogeyman or boogie boo propaganda until after we gain some momentum, which will come after the Green Party hits the 5% threshold, then grows, then gains elected officials, then garners some representative sway, then influences policy, then actually implements social change. Then people see successes. The society just believes on its own. Even then, schools might still reject teaching of Marx, etc." So, and then there's, "I see nothing wrong with considering future generations. Brings tears of joy to my eyes." And then this guy says, why too wordy for Americans? Again, this is all people being pretty damn pro-communist in this conversation. And then this guy says, not right-wing crazy enough, since it seems the party wants to go that way. That's like, the big ridiculous response I get from so many people when I'm debating them with the Green Party is that anything that is short of like full-on communism to them is far right-wing. Like there's no in-between. And this person seems to get some of it. They said, I think what the OP is trying to say here is that Howie and the Green Party have no chance at broader outreach or ever winning the presidency, since they don't care about alienating the majority of voters. And then this guy says, this makes me love him even more. Wow. And this guy, Ricardo Donato, says, nice, I love it. So what's your problem with this? And then some guy with a Howie Hawkins thing says, Victor Vaughn is a Biden brothers troll. And Victor says, hardly. And then this guy says, Victor, you are a weak-minded Democrat who doesn't understand anything about socialism or communism. And then Victor says, any campaign manager who approved this message is weak-minded. And Brittany says, you point blank didn't even look at what he said. Most people don't understand anything about communism or socialism. Do you actually want to win votes outside of the Green Party? Or are you content to just keep getting the ever-shrinking portion of the vote you are getting? Is your hope to win elections or to continue to jerk each other off in this little clique you formed for yourselves here? Yeah, Brittany kind of went for the throat, but... So here's another guy who says, we're not Democrats. We actually want young people to vote for us. Also, Marx was right. And then this Chris Blackenthorn guy says, the campaign has been openly socialist from day one. There's no way you can be shocked that we would commemorate a central thinker in socialist politics. And the campaign platform is very Marxist in the sense that it sets up the transitional state. And Victor says, then there is no way you should be shocked when Howie Hawkins fails even harder than Jill Stein did. There is a reason a member of one of the tiny failed socialist parties is running for your nomination and appointing a VP candidate who also comes from a failed tiny socialist party. Now, this person here, Tina Rocket, tries to, actually dial things back. She says, the Hawkins campaign is socialist. The Green Party is not capital S socialist. The Green Party is green. Our platform clearly states, we believe the old models of capitalism, private ownership of production, and state socialism, state ownership of production are not ecologically sound, socially just, or democratic, and they both contain built-in structures that advance injustices. And she posts a quote here to the platform, and then this person comes in to defend and says, oh no, we really are communists. Emmett Campbell says, read the next two sentences after the highlighted portion, bud. This is the other thing is like some of these people have just been declaring victory that they were able to in some way get the Green Party platform to sound communist. But, it says, instead we will build an economy based on large-scale green public works, municipalization, and workplace and community democracy. Some will call this decentralized system ecological socialism, communalism, or cooperative commonwealth. Whatever the terminology, we believe that it will help with labor exploitation, environmental exploitation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And come back to the post. So, and then Tina says, I've read our platform many times. And then Emmett says, well, then why are you spreading false information? And then she says, you better reread it all together. And then he says, you're the one cherry picking, literally highlighted the part that would frame your narrative and tried to pretend nobody would notice the next paragraph. Again, just, viciously suggesting, no, we really are communists. Nicholas Menke, the platform pretty clearly states that it does not support centralized state socialism, but does support decentralized ecological socialism, communism, even though the platform didn't say the word communism. It said communalism, whatever the hell that is. Probably just a play on words. But anyway, it says, the platform supports decentralized ecological socialism and communism. So no, not really sure what you think you've proved here. Considering a capital S socialist as a member of the party or political group advocating socialism, and the Green Party does, in fact, advocate socialism according to its own platform. And then Victor posed this meme, and this is why they fail. And then this guy says, did you read it? It's spot on true. And then there's an argument here between two people. He's like, I don't see anything wrong with the ad, but I still don't like Howie. I prefer Dario or whatever. But Victor says, it seems that people are not really reading my post, but what it amounts to is this. Karl Marx is not well regarded by the vast majority of the electorate. Posting a picture of him with your campaign logo is absolute political suicide. I'd say Victor is absolutely right. And let me move on here. So this guy, Lance Chanda, says, with that being said, we need to purge the fake and sociologically counterproductive definitions of socialism that we were force-fed by the 1%er propaganda machine. And Victor points out, I would also say astutely, that you will absolutely never succeed in that endeavor. It is deeply rooted in the society. If you were to have any success in changing the narrative, then you need to find ways to spread policy ideas and not brand them. Whether justified or not, Karl Marx is not fit for public consumption. You are asking to fail hard. Then this guy here posts some more communist stuff, and what the world has come to understand as communism is nothing like the definition of Marxism. And here's a gem. So Natalie Thorpe says to Victor, "You are in the wrong group if you take issue with this. You should find the door and exit." And Victor says, "Thank you for illustrating why the party is so small and has been fading into being a non-factor. There are many of us who are looking for somewhere to go when Sanders dropped out of the race. The Green Party has misrepresented themselves as holding the same values as Bernie Sanders. They don't." Jamie Whitworth says, "Victor Vaughn, for many of us, the Green Party supporters are eco-socialists. Bernie was always the compromise." So again, Howie Hawkins is not a good substitute for Bernie Sanders, and even they admit that. And Victor says, well, then be honest about that, and then said, never have I ever been dishonest about it. And then the Howie Hawkins campaign is routinely dishonest and misleading about that, is what Victor points out. And then he just put some other stupid stuff on here, but then Natalie Thorpe says, Victor Vaughn, like I said, no need to whine about it. Just go. Like, if you're not willing to be a communist, just go. And so Tina again tries to inject some intelligence in the conversation, saying burners are really greens, socialists are really greens, communists are really greens, the grassroots 99% are really greens. The people that insist on clinging to the isms of the past that exclude and factionalize people are the problem. I have to wonder how many of these people who are in here attacking people are actually agent provocateurs. They certainly do not do socialists or the Green Party or Unity any favors. I don't think any of them are agent provocateurs. I just think that there legitimately is a very extremist wing of the Communist Party or Communist movement within the Green Party, and that this is them basically coming out openly and declaring that for everybody. That's why you get into these arguments where they defend their right to say that it's a communist party. And what Victor said earlier about the utter failures of socialist parties in the United States is absolutely correct. Anything that looks anything like that has absolutely failed. So the intention of trying to drag the Green Party even further into communism and declare victory on it, is their thought that they're going to finally have ballot access for a socialist communist candidate, because none of those parties have ever had ballot access of any relevance. That some of them might not be on like one or two states, So Lorenzo Simmons says, she's right, Vic. I've been in meetings with Howie. He's always been upfront about socialism, just not posting pics of Marx. And then Victor throws in that is why you fail up again. And Victor Vaughn says, Tina Rocket, people are fully on embracing it and treating me or anyone who points out what is wrong with it as blasphemers. The Green Party's face in this conversation is just like so many other failed socialist parties that are content to repeat communist slogans to each other and fail over and over again. It makes them feel good to push people around in their little echo chambers like it is here, when outside of the pathetic little bubble that is this party, they are laughed at by the majority of the electorate. I made it clear, I don't even dislike communists. My issue is with the utterly incompetent campaign strategy in producing such a post, or defending it as the buffoons in this conversation have. This guy says, thanks for sharing, like trying to be respectful, that you shared, but I don't agree. Tina reposted her burners aren't really greens or whatever. So now this guy, Lorenzo Simmons, again, seems to have his head screwed on straight. He says, I agree with the meme, but Victor is absolutely fucking right. This is disappointing. Has anybody ever met any Americans? Fuck, I'm usually the one talking people off the ledge, but I'm on it myself right now. Am I missing something here? And because it's just stupid. You can't post something like this and get elected. So then they argue a little bit with him. Lorenzo, you're right. Americans see names words they don't like and just turn away instead of taking the time to think about it critically. I wish we weren't like that. And then this Martin Sorensen's guy says, I'd like to offer that if the Greens start blatantly quoting Marx, Kropotkin, Chairman Fred Hampton, etc., lots of leftists might actually vote. as we are well aware, I'm sure. I guess he thinks that there's this enormous communist movement that would just suddenly emerge out of the woodwork, even though that's never actually happened in the history of our country, at least recently, with any of the communist movements. But, and then Lorenzo says, do you think they have the numbers to get 5% after he scares away a bunch of progressives? Remember, Bernie Burners are so aggressive. He's like, Lorenzo says, you do have some points, but this is, I don't know. And then Martin says, if they were scared of Marx and run back to the Dems or try to rewrite what socialism is, we've already lost. And, Chris Kobereverse says, DSAs, Bernie, Democratic Socialists, Bernie, AOC are not at all communist anything. And they didn't really have an answer for that, but Victor says, in reference to what Chris said, and both of them have actually succeeded in being elected to major office. I am fairly confident there is a reason for that. And Victor replies to Martin, the battle was already lost long ago. The battle for any legitimacy of Karl Marx outside of communist circles is over. You have to find another way to share the policy ideas and the good things you feel he said without wearing it on your sleeve. And Chris Coabra says again, who has brought forward more progressive goals than Bernie? None of the Greenies or Indies or any of the other candy asses have brought forward progressive goals more than Bernie. The DNC swampists sucked him in while he was trying to adapt to their corrupt regime. I hope he sees that now and gets out. The rest of the DSAs, meaning Democratic Socialists and Greens, needed to come together out of the two-party regime he is and has been fighting before most of you were born. So I guess, I could go on reading this crap for a while, but more or less, these people are just, ardent communists. And they, essentially say, yeah, we are, and our party's communist, and if you don't like it, then leave. And, like this lady here, Annika Bananica, whatever, says, I find this really wonderful, inspiring. Okay, do you find getting less than 1% of the vote, wonderful and inspiring? And Heather Duncan says, I don't think so. It embodies the leftist movement of today. These people are absolutely clueless to the fact that they don't even consider the fact that Bernie took enormous shit for just using the word socialist. Now we want to openly say we're communists, and when you do this, it's just not going to work. It's whether or not, I don't agree with full communism either, but anybody who does this and thinks that this is acceptable is trying to fail, or they've just deluded themselves. And I've heard some of them say this. Like, some of them have literally deluded themselves. They think that this will be the time, that this is the time when everybody in the United States will just pass over to direct communism, and it's just a stupid idea. It's not going to work. And if they want to have any hope of bringing any legitimacy to these ideas, then they have to find a way to do it that doesn't just project this right there in front of your face. This is not going to work. It's incompetent campaign strategy, and they don't really want Bernie people to join the party. They just, as far as like to bring any ideas that are progressive with them, they want you to join the party and assimilate into their way of thinking. And that's why I've emphasized before, Jesse Ventura being the nominee of the Green Party was the only chance they had. And unfortunately, much in the same way as the DNC just doesn't care if they lose as long as they maintain their control, the communist group within the Green Party feels the same way. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to do that, including similar levels of corruption. There are people who hold high-level party positions within the Green Party that have actively sought to affect the primary. I'll probably do a video and show about that later, but like Dario Hunter, for example, who's kind of the second running guy, was completely left off of one of the ballots. In fact, one of the ballots in one of their primaries literally didn't have anybody on it except for Howie Hawkins. And they tried to claim that Dario didn't get his paperwork in, and then, somebody posting as Dario's campaign showed the email that said, no, here's the receipt of you saying, yep, you got it. So, no, that's crap. So, again, guys, I don't hate communists. I don't hate socialists. That's not what this is about. You guys have seen I have Brian Moore on my show all the time. The problem is that doing something like this, it might make you feel good, but it's not going to get, if you have any, like Brittany said, if you have any interest in getting votes outside of the Green Party, then you have to have some kind of real strategy. And this, folks, this is not a good strategy. This is stupid. Period. Have a good day.